You're watching The Issue Is.
And welcome to The Issue Is. Look who is here with us. One of the most recognizable, best-liked, best-known journalists in the history of TV. Katie Couric is here. The former, of course, Today Show host, CBS Evening News anchor, is the executive producer of a new documentary we want everybody to watch. Let's show you right there. It's called For Love and Life, No Ordinary Campaign, which debuts on Amazon Prime on May 28th. We'll talk to the stars of the film in our next segment here on The Issue Is. But Katie, so good to have you with us. Welcome back to The Issue Is.
So nice to be here. Thank you very much. And you're right. I think we've done this remotely, but never face-to-face.
Yes. You look great in person.
Well, so do you.
Okay. So we'll talk about the documentary in a little bit. But let's start with the news of the week. And since we talk politics here so much.
Right.
Who's winning the presidential race right now? Is it Trump? Is it Biden? How do you see the state of the race?
Gosh, I'm more interested in how you see the state of the race. But from where I sit, it seems that Donald Trump has the edge right now. The race is obviously, almost 6 months away, or the election. So anything can happen. There's usually an October surprise. I think the debates may help one candidate or the other. But despite all of his legal woes and the fact that, he's on trial, and Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen, he seems to be surprisingly gaining momentum, not losing it. What is your view?
Well, I think that the debates coming in June is an acknowledgement that Joe Biden and his campaign know that they're losing.
Right.
That there's this feeling that they need to shake up the race and they need to do it now. And that they're aware that this narrative exists, that Joe Biden is old and weak and out of control. And if you put him on a stage next to Trump, he has the opportunity to disprove that. But that's also a risk because he has the opportunity to prove that, too.
Right. The stakes are high.
Yeah.
He hasn't done many interviews. They've been very selective, doing things like Conan O'Brien or
Howard Stern.
Or Smartless, right? And things like that I think aren't necessarily a forum for really challenging questions about policy and his vision for the future. And I think it would behoove him to get out there more, to talk more, because I think the less you talk, the higher the stakes are when you do. Mm-hmm. And so I think you're right. The debate is going to be a really important test for both candidates. And I do, I've been trying to get an interview with him. So selfishly, I'd like him to be.
He needs more interviews.
No, he does, though.
He
I
does,
really think so, because I think it only reinforces this notion that he is not up to the job. And I think if people see him working and doing the job and talking about the issues, it will help him considerably.
Do you think that he's too old to win?
No, I don't. I think these are the two candidates we have. And I think that it's a clear choice in terms of ideology, in terms of the direction of the country, in terms of how each individual views our democracy. And I think that, it was interesting when he did campaign in 2020, he suggested he was going to be the bridge to a new generation of leaders flanked by Cory Booker and Kamala Harris and Gretchen Whitmer. But I think it's hard to not run for re-election. I think power is very intoxicating, and I think he has done a pretty good job by most measures. I think obviously there are things that a lot of people don't believe he's done well, but he wants to have another 4 years, and I think these, as I said, are the two options, at least at this juncture. There are a lot of fantasies about the Democratic National Convention, if something's going to happen there, but I think it's going to be Trump versus Biden.
I mean, do you think that if this debate doesn't go well for Biden, there's like a couple months before the convention, is there going to be rumblings that maybe he does need to be replaced, or there needs to be another candidate? I mean, if Biden really wants to stay, it's very hard to get rid of him if he insists on staying, but
I think it's really hard at this juncture, Elex, to get another candidate, to get that person acquainted with the American public. On the other hand, it's only political junkies like you and me who pay attention 24/7, you know, 365 days a year to politics. Most people really don't tune in till the fall. So I think anything can happen, but wow, that would be some story to cover, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. So the debates right now were announced. CNN is supposed to be moderated by Jake Tapper and Dana Bash.
Right.
The ABC debate expected to be moderated by David Muir and by Lindsay Davis.
Right.
Unfortunately, there's not going to be an Issue Is debate moderated by Elex Michaelson and Katie Couric, but if they want to do one,
hope springs eternal.
We're here, right?
You know?
There's still time.
I think it's really interesting that they leapfrogged over the Presidential Commission on Debates, right?
Which is this commission which was established in the late 80s,
right,
and has run every debate since in a sort of nonpartisan way, bringing all the networks together, putting rules in place, having both the campaigns negotiate something out, and they're saying this isn't working.
Right. I think it's, you know, I think particularly with unpredictable candidates, I think it is a real indictment on the debates that have been held in recent years. I don't know about you, but I have felt increasingly frustrated with the format, with the fact that it's all about, you know, interrupting another candidate. It's all about a zinger or a zippy one-liner that will be used on newscasts following the debate or go viral on social media. And it's really become a circus, which I think serves no one.
Yeah.
I don't think you get a good idea of where people stand on policy, what differentiates the candidates. So I think basically the campaign said, you're not handling this well, Commission on Presidential Debates. We're going to go straight to the networks, and we're going to actually install our own rules. I do think the microphone should be turned off. I think that it should not be allowed to have candidates interrupt each other.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to work and if it's going to work, but it will be fascinating to see.
Last time, Donald Trump interrupted 151 times in that first debate that he did with Joe Biden. So if you were moderating the debate, what would be the first question you would ask?
I think I would ask about the legitimacy of the 2020 election. I'm not sure it would change any minds, but I still am blown away by the fact that 60-plus courts have said there is insufficient evidence that the election was quote-unquote rigged, and yet a huge percentage of Republican voters still believe it was. And I think this speaks to the fact that people in this country are creating their own ecosystems, media ecosystems and echo chambers, and they're getting affirmation instead of information. Yeah. But, you know, I think that I would want on the record about that. And then, of course, I think I would go to January 6th and what was done and why then President Trump did not intervene for how many hours? Was it almost 3 hours before he actually told his followers to stop? So I think I would probably focus on that. And then I think I would focus on inflation, because I think one of the things that's driving a lot of support for President Trump are, you know, grocery store prices and gas prices and housing prices. I think average people are really struggling. And I would like to kind of unravel the role the president has in inflation. Right. And prices. So I think those are the two areas I would focus on initially. But honestly, I haven't had time to prepare. So if I do a debate, you call me.
Yeah, exactly. You bring up the media ecosystem. We think of you and the famous Sarah Palin interview back in 2008, which was one of the most important political interviews ever. It really changed the trajectory of that race. It got so much attention. Do you think an interview like that is even possible today?
No.
Given the media ecosystem?
I do not.
No.
I think that it was not quite as polarized. It was starting to be polarized, and of course that was the sort of time the Tea Party was gaining ground. But I think that there's so much distrust in the media, and I think that people would have blamed the messenger. I think back then, I think I made such a point to ask very non-confrontational questions that really helped determine Sarah Palin's a critical thinking ability and accumulated knowledge of policy, of public policy, and worked with our good friend Brian Goldsmith to do that. And I just think that everything is received in a prism now.
Sure.
With a certain point of view, almost immediately discounted by one side or the other. I still think there is this big swath of moderate voters who really want solutions, who are not on the extremes of either side, who don't believe compromise is a dirty word, who wants our government to do the people's business. So I think it might still be received by that group of people, but I'm not sure.
You know, now you've got a newsletter, you've got a podcast, you're all over social media. If you were to go into journalism now as like a 21-year-old, would you go into TV news? Would you still want to go into journalism?
I always tell people that they need to diversify their portfolio.
Okay.
First of all, I feel like journalism is such a wonderful, such an important profession. You know, we really need to have our public officials held accountable. We need to shine a light on things that people don't know, to have an informed citizenry, which is the cornerstone of a democracy,
Sure.
right? And I think it's such a fun and fascinating business. It has changed dramatically, as you know. So I think people need to be much more creative and savvy about how they create content and how they distribute it. That's why we started a media company 6 years ago, getting to people where they are, whether it's on social media, on YouTube, Instagram Lives. You know, a lot of people would say, why are you doing that? And I said, because this is the way people are consuming news and information, through podcasts, through newsletters. So I think you just have to be really smart, but I think it's so critically important that I want to encourage anyone who's interested in journalism to not give up on the profession, even as it changes dramatically.
Of course, the content that does the best in social media is oftentimes not the nuanced political examination, it's the personal stuff. And to that point, congratulations to you.
Thank
you.
You
just became a grandma for the first time 8 weeks ago,
yes,
right?
Yes,
this is,
I have a little grandson.
John, right?
Yes, his name is John Albert. He was named after my late husband and Ellie's dad, Jay Monahan. And yes, it's a thrill. That was a picture of Ellie and her husband, Mark, who met in college. And that's Carrie, my other daughter, holding baby Jay, and my husband, John, passing out the cigars, of course. But yes, you know, listen, it's sort of how life goes, and roots and wings. And then you want to see your children have their own families if they were lucky enough to have a happy family life. And so it's just a marvel to see your child become a parent. And I'm really looking forward to showing little Jay around Central Park, and, you know, taking him to museums and doing all the things that, you know, that is really seeing the world through the eyes of a child. It's wonderful.
Yeah, my family just went through this as well.
I know,
we had baby G, not
congratulations.
baby J. Gabriel, that's Gabriel right after he was born, my sister's baby, and my parents just became grandparents for the first time.
Are they thrilled?
We are thrilled and
well,
and,
maybe
and
they
deeply
can
in
be.
love.
Maybe they can have a play
buddies.
date.
Yeah, they live not
Gabe
too far
and
away
Jay,
from each other.
right?
All right, real quickly, we have fun on this show with a game called Personal Issues, which you've played before. This is 30 seconds to get to know your cultural favorites, what you're into right now, which you often talk about on Katie Couric Media. So we're going to put time up on the clock, and here we go. What is your favorite TV show you're watching right now?
I just finished Baby Reindeer, which I loved. Very controversial.
Best book you've read recently?
The Age of Grievance by Frank Bruni.
Favorite concert you've been to recently?
Oh, gosh, I haven't been to Taylor Swift a year ago with my daughters.
What is your favorite podcast other than your own?
I do like The Daily from the New York Times.
And who is the best interview to listen to other than you?
Oh, the best, Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway.
Very nice.
And Elex.
Okay, there you go.
Do you have a podcast?
The Issue Is put out as a podcast.
Oh,
People
there you
should
go.
search for
Yes,
that.
Elex
Search for The Issue
Michaelson.
Is. There we go. And the real reason you're here, though, is this incredible documentary for Love and Life, No Ordinary campaign. We're about to meet the stars of it in just a moment and talk to you more about it later on. But just real quickly, why should everybody pay attention to this?
Oh, gosh. You know, it is such an uplifting, empowering moving, inspiring story of people who faced unsurmountable odds and somehow found the strength and courage to do something, not just for themselves, but for their entire community. And I think I just happen to love Brian Wallach and his wife, Sandra Apravaya, and we've become very good friends. And I think at a time where people feel hopeless and powerless, that they can't achieve anything and they've kind of thrown up their hands and given up, these two people will make you ask yourself, what can I do? How can I make the world a better place? Because these two people have, under very, very difficult circumstances. So I just hope everyone watches their story because it's truly a beautiful one.
And we just talked so much about what doesn't work. These are an example of what does work and represent the best of humanity. So we're really excited for everybody to meet them. They will be with us when we come back. And
we
Katie will join us as well.
We?
Oh my God, my dream is finally happening. You want to throw it a break then, Katie?
Yes.
We'll be right back. First, you're watching Today on NBC. I don't know. What are we doing?
We'll be right back.